Trump warns NATO allies that they face a very bad future if they fail to immediately deploy naval forces to secure the Strait of Hormuz, marking a chaotic escalation in a conflict that has now entered its third week. The American president, in a series of digital ultimatums, has effectively demanded that Europe and the UK abandon their hesitation and send warships into the most dangerous waterway on Earth to break the yuan-only blockade enforced by Tehran. This is a dramatic reverse ferret from the White House. Only days ago, Trump told the UK he didn't need their aircraft carriers. But as the Fifth Fleet finds itself unable to guarantee safe passage for 20% of the world's oil supply, Washington is now begging for the very help it previously mocked. The crisis has moved far beyond simple military strikes and into the realm of terminal economic warfare. While Israel and the US continue to pummel Iranian drone facilities and regime infrastructure, Tehran is playing a maximalist long game, utilizing a high pain threshold and geographical advantage to hold the global energy market hostage. The Iranian foreign minister has made it clear. No ceasefire has been requested, and any previous deals involving the dilution of enriched uranium are now under the rubble. Instead, Iran is leveraging its ability to manufacture cheap Shahed drones underground at a rate of 500 per month, using them to exhaust multi-million-dollar Western interceptors. The reality on the ground is stark. Even as the US hits targets for what Trump calls fun, the Iranian regime remains uncollapsed and defiant, betting that their survival alone will constitute a victory over the world's most powerful military. For the Atlantic Alliance, the fracture is widening into a chasm. In London and Brussels, the hesitation to fulfill Trump's request is rooted in a deep sense of betrayal and tactical reality. The UK, having recently sent home its last specialized mine countermeasure ship, HMS Middleton, now finds itself with nothing to administer in the region, while the US appears to have launched a war they neither planned for nor anticipated. The global economy is already reeling as the habit of the dollar is challenged by the cold necessity of survival. As the Europeans meet to discuss whether their Red Sea mission can be stretched to the Gulf, the realization is setting in. The security umbrella of the West is leaking. Whether it's through the sowing of a single mine or the enforcement of yuan-based trade, the Strait of Hormuz has become the graveyard of the post-war order, where Trump's warnings to NATO reflect a superpower that can no longer see through the dark zone it created. This dark zone is not just a tactical blackout of radar and sensors. It is a profound strategic blindness that has left Washington swinging wildly at ghosts while the real architecture of its power dissolves. Trump's rhetoric has shifted from triumphant to transactional, bluntly telling the Financial Times that nations who are the beneficiaries of the strait must now pay the bill in blood and steel. He has explicitly linked NATO's future survival to this very small endeavor of minesweeping, suggesting that if allies were there for Ukraine, they must now be there for the American energy interest. But the allies are looking at a different ledger. They see a president who just authorized a 30-day sanctions waiver for Russian oil to stop a domestic gas price spike, effectively funding the Kremlin to solve a crisis he helped ignite. In Berlin and Paris, this isn't seen as leadership. It's seen as a panic move that rewards one adversary to spite another, all while the European economy bleeds out at $106 a barrel. The betrayal felt in European capitals is mirrored by a growing sense of obsolescence. As Trump mocks British Prime Minister Keir Starmer for offering ships after we win, not before, he ignores the reality that the win he envisions is a military fantasy. Iran has transformed the strait into a currency filter, where the only ships granted safe passage are those operating within the Chinese CIPS network. This is the M-Bridge revolution in real time, a digital, non-dollar financial system that has rendered U.S. Treasury sanctions as irrelevant as a wooden shield against a railgun. While NATO debates the legality of offensive operations, 5 tankers carrying LPG and crude recently glided through the strait untouched, reportedly after settling their accounts with Tehran in yuan. The message to the world is devastatingly clear. The U.S. Navy can no longer protect your trade, but the Chinese yuan can. As we look toward the November midterm elections, the domestic pressure on the White House is reaching a fever pitch. U.S. petrol prices have surged to $3.70 per gallon, a 62-cent jump in a single month, prompting the administration to consider waiving the Jones Act to allow foreign ships to move fuel between American ports. This is a superpower in retreat, stripping away its own protectionist laws just to keep its pumps running. Trump's threat to delay his summit with Xi Jinping is his last remaining leverage, a desperate attempt to force Beijing to help unblock the waterway that feeds 90% of its own oil. But why would Beijing help restore a dollar-dominated status quo when they are currently watching the dollar be systematically evicted from the global energy supply? The very bad future Trump warned about isn't a hypothetical threat to NATO's budget. It is the visible collapse of the Western security guarantee. When Japan and Australia, America's most loyal Pacific sentinels, publicly declined to send ships into the Hormuz meat grinder, The one-way street Trump complains about has officially closed, and in its place, a toll road has emerged where the only accepted currency is the Chinese yuan. This isn't just a shift in trade routes. It is a total inversion of the post-1945 world order. For decades, the United States provided the security for global shipping as a global public good, essentially subsidizing the world's energy markets in exchange for the dollar's role as the undisputed reserve currency. But Trump's ultimatum to NATO has signaled the end of that bargain. By demanding that allies pay to play in the Strait of Hormuz, he has inadvertently signaled to the world that the U.S. security umbrella is now a subscription service, one that many allies can no longer afford, and one that Tehran has already proven is full of holes. In the hallways of the Berlaymont in Brussels and at 10 Downing Street, the silence is deafening. The British government, struggling with the malaise of a kinetic conflict it didn't choose, is watching its political capital evaporate. As energy prices spike, the conversation in Westminster has shifted from statecraft to survival. Ed Miliband, the energy secretary, has been forced onto news sofas to admit that the government might have to step in with tens of billions in subsidies, a Liz Truss-style intervention, just to keep British homes from freezing. But there is a bitter irony here. The very money the UK would use to socialize these energy shocks is being devalued by the minute as the world's oil markets decouple from the sterling and the dollar. When Trump warns of a very bad future, he is talking about a world where the UK and Europe are left to navigate the sound of gunfire with a navy that has been hollowed out by decades of peace dividend complacency. While the West bickers over who will pay for the minesweepers, Russia is quietly reaping the whirlwind. By lifting sanctions on Russian oil to calm the markets, Trump has handed Vladimir Putin a strategic masterstroke. Moscow is now the cleaner of the global energy crisis, providing the stranded oil that keeps Western economies on life support, while simultaneously deepening its comprehensive strategic partnership with Tehran. This is the front door, backdoor maneuver. Russia facilitates Iran's military resilience through intelligence sharing, while the West is forced to pay Russia record prices for oil to offset the Iranian blockade. The petrodollar is being squeezed from both sides, and the axis of authoritarians is finding that high oil prices are the most effective weapon ever devised against Western democratic stability. The dark zone has now expanded to the very heart of the global financial system. The Enbridge platform, once a boring technical pilot for central banks, has become the lifeboat for the global south. Since the war entered its third week, transactions on the platform have hit an annualized run rate of hundreds of billions, as nations from Brazil to Indonesia realize that if they trade in yuan, their ships don't get hit, and their insurance premiums don't skyrocket. They are watching a managed retreat of the American Fifth Fleet, which is now relegated to protecting its own carriers rather than the commercial tankers it once policed. In this new reality, the U.S. Navy is an island in a sea that it no longer controls. As the sun sets over the Gulf, the physical reality of the yuan ultimatum is visible on every radar screen. A convoy of non-Western tankers is currently moving through the Strait of Hormuz, escorted not by American destroyers, but by the silent, looming presence of Iranian fast attack craft that are acting as customs agents for the New World Order. They aren't looking for contraband. They are looking for CIPS transaction codes. Trump's warning to NATO was meant to be a show of strength, a demand for fair share burden sharing. Instead, it has become the starting gun for a global scramble to find a new protector. The very bad future isn't a threat. It's the new normal. The map has been redrawn, the clock has run out, and the one-way street of American hegemony has ended at a dead end in the salt-choked waters of Hormuz.